Don't remember.
Okay.
You all ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, good evening. It is 6:30 PM. Today is Thursday, February 9th. This is the Olentangy Board of Education. It's a regular meeting. I will call the meeting to order. Mr. Jenkins, please call the roll.
Mr. Lester.
Here.
Dr. Dabrico.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Dr. Wise.
Here.
Dr. Wallach.
Here.
To everybody. All right, please join me, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written. We have no amendments.
Correct.
Have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second, we have a first and a second. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, please call the roll. Mr. Jenkins?
Mr. Lester.
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Dr. Wise.
Yes.
Dr. Wallach.
Yes.
All right, we'll move into the board president's report. I've got a couple things I want to cover, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the board for things that they want to give updates on and share. The superintendent search, so we've received 4 proposals, I think interest from 5 firms, but proposals from 4. Finding Leaders, OSBA, the ESC, the Taft Group, and a firm from Illinois that I can't remember their name, HYA or something like that.
Hazard to Tia Young.
Sorry?
Hazard to Tia Young.
Yes, thank you. So we've got a good group of firms that we'll be able to make a choice on later tonight as we go into executive session. But that process will continue. Again, setting expectations, this is going to be a fairly deliberate process, right? We don't replace the superintendent in a couple weeks. We take our time, we do it right. We're going to choose a firm. The firm's going to help us build a candidate pool. From that candidate pool, we will go through some screening, both at the board level with the firm as well as with the community. I wouldn't anticipate really any face-to-face interviews, kind of the end of March, beginning of April. Because again, I know we announced Mark's retirement last week, or 2 weeks ago, sorry. There's a lot of anticipation, what are you doing, what are you doing? Well, we're gonna run a process. Mark's under contract. He was generous enough to give us time that he'll be here to the end of July. So we're going to take advantage of that time to walk through a process that's very deliberate and intentional to make sure that we get the right person through the right process to lead this district going forward. So I just wanted to kind of set expectations on the superintendent search so that people understand. There'll be kind of a lot of background work around building a pool and screening the pool before we bring someone forward for consideration, but I wouldn't anticipate really names surfacing in the public until, middle of March, late March, right? It's, so just trying to set that expectation. Second things, on the agenda tonight, and this is a little bit personal for me, is turf. Okay, when I started on the board 13 years ago, we went through this journey of really working with our booster groups on getting turf at Orange, Liberty, and Olentangy. There was a ton of skepticism around, could the boosters pull this off, raise that money, deliver it in? They did. Not only did they raise the money, deliver the turf, but they raised a sufficient revenue stream to replace the turf, which is what we're voting on tonight, right? And so I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize and acknowledge the work of Orange and Liberty and Olentangy's booster groups on getting us turf and then getting the revenue stream to replace the turf, which we'll be voting on tonight. So that was a significant issue back in the day, and it's interesting, it all comes back around, right? And here we're replacing what we put in. So I'm very proud of that work, very proud of the work of the boosters and how they were able to get that done for the district. And then lastly, before I open up, we have a presentation item tonight, Mr. Nicola, which actually don't see him here. I think he'll be here in a minute. in the broadcast journalism group at Orange. So I've been over there, I've been interviewed by the group. My daughters have been through the class a couple times. It's a fantastic group. They do tons of, Nicola does a great job, lots of energy. They do like the fundraising, I forget what they call it, the fundraising day, where they're on broadcast all day. It's a phenomenal experience. And if you look at the studio, in the studio that we've put in place at Orange, but then now at the other schools, it's just a fantastic experience for the kids. And I want to give Brian a lot of credit for that. He's at, I don't know how he finds the time. He's at school all the time between broadcasting and wrestling. It's phenomenal. So I really appreciate the work that he's done and the work that they're doing. It'll be a great story tonight. I look
He has
forward to
a
it.
lot of faith in these guys. He's at senior night for girls wrestling.
Oh, okay. And
Top ranked Orange girls
as
wrestling.
I understand it, and I'll say this, I'll probably be wrong, but Orange wrestling is like the Kentucky basketball of wrestling. They're like the best of the best. And give him a lot of credit for doing that. It's fantastic. So with that, I'll open it up to any other board members.
You can go
Dr.
first.
Dabico, you something you want to cover?
I do have something, but you can go
I'll
first.
go very briefly. The Facilities Committee last Wednesday took a tour of Berlin Middle School. Things are moving along very well. It's looking just wonderful. I think by the end of March into April is when we're going to get in and start putting in the furnishings. And it's going to be ready on time, which is a minor miracle considering all of the challenges that we faced with the supply chain and everything. But the Robertson team, Fanning Howard, all of those did a great job. So can't wait for everybody to see it in the community.
Great.
Last Tuesday, we enjoyed School Funding 101 at Olentangy High School. It reminded me of why we hired a treasurer that was a teacher, because Mr. Jenkins expertly broke down a really complicated school funding, local, how we all fit it together to come up with school funding in Olentangy. So I appreciate his great work. A number of people came up and said, that makes sense. I get it now. Mr. Rafe shared his passion for public education in the context of what we do in Olentangy. It was awesome. Ms. Fiesel put everything that we talked about in the context of the political timeline with the budget. We made a call to arms, so to speak, inviting folks to join the committee. We had a great response from folks, and we'll be getting back to them to organize our advocacy efforts over the spring. So it was really a great night. Appreciate your support very much of the effort.
Okay, anything else? Nope. All right, let's move into that first presentation item. Let's talk about the Olentangy Orange broadcast journalism.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Chase Balser,
I'm Wyatt Downey.
I'm Lily Clark.
and we're the executive producers for the Olentangy Orange broadcast and video production, also known as The Juice. We're just going to be giving you guys a little bit of information tonight about our program, what we do on a day-to-day basis with our second period, and even other things outside of just that period as well.
All right, so our main part of our class is our daily news show, which happens every day during our second period. It's about a 10 to 15 minute show where all of our morning announcements and weekly announcements come out. We run news packages every day. Today we ran something about the girls basketball team and how their season's going. But we run other things such as national issues and also fun things like students asking other students questions in the hallway. It's really a great range. This is a great class to take to learn technical skills. My favorite job in the class is the directing job, where you can talk in between our control room and our anchors. It's really fun you can also talk between the cameras, which is fun to have conversations with people. It's a really great way to learn how professional news is in the field.
All right. So one part of our program that often gets overlooked is our third period shows. So we have a class third period, which is kind of known as an advanced broadcast journalism, and it's usually reserved for executive and line producers. It's mainly just so we can kind of fulfill our leadership roles, but we also run 3 live news shows during each week for this. So we have a national news show, we have an arts news show, and we have a sports news show. This sports show is kind of like Sports Center, where we have interviews with student athletes and coaches, and we also kind of just break down what's going on in sports for the week.
So moving on to our live sports section, this is something that we have really been building on the past few years, and we want to continue to build on it and just make it something that a lot of people will enjoy and tune into even more. Each sports season, each person in the class will have 2 sporting events for that season to sign up for. Whether that's being behind a camera, commentating the game, or just helping direct everything and switch between camera shots and everything like that. We try to live stream every home game if possible. It doesn't always happen just due to some complications every now and then, but we do try our very best to live stream every home game. And with one of our football games every year, we try to make it against our division rival, usually against the original Olentangy or Berlin or Liberty, but we'll kind of go all out for that game where we'll have 3 cameras, 2 of our better commentators for the group that really enjoy football, and we'll even be able to get some on-field interviews with coaches, players, stuff like that. It's a really great time for everybody, especially the people watching for that. It's really a great way to show creativity for commentators and people that just enjoy sports, and whether you know a ton about the sport you're going to commentate or you don't know a lot, it's a lot of fun and a good way to show creativity and maybe even learn something new about that sport. And then we stream that through a streaming service called Boxcast.
One of our newer programs that has started in the 4 years that we've been in high school is our radio station, WPOP The Pulp, on the Free Mixer app. It's a daily streaming platform. We play 12 different playlists ranging from Jimmy Buffett to One Direction all day, from 7:30 when we get to school to 2:30 when we leave school. We have 3 different podcasts that go every week, but we also have plenty of time slots for our staff to go through and talk about whatever's on their mind. Our returning podcasts are an NFL Weekly Recap, and while the professional football season is wrapping up, you can go back and listen to everything from Week 1 to now the Super Bowl. We have Thriller Thursdays, which happened today, where they talk about everything from true crime to unsolved mysteries, anything that interests them in that kind of field. And then a fun one is Fridays with Frank. We have a staff member who brings on 2 different guests every week, and they talk about things like their lives. They can also, a couple weeks ago, they talked about national political issues. It's definitely a fun range.
So one of the largest aspects of our program is social media, as we are a media program. But we use Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, with Twitter probably being the largest social media outlet that we use. Our Twitter account is called Orange Sports Live, or OSL, and through Orange Sports Live, we cover live sports when we can't stream them. We produce graphics in order to promote athletic events, and we also celebrate some accolades of our student athletes. As far as the other social medias, we have TikTok. TikTok is kind of is probably the most fun that we do. We kind of use it to kind of collaborate with the other programs. There's a function on TikTok called Duetting, where you're able to kind of just like have 2 videos side by side with another program. And we've done that with both Tangy Today, which is Olentangy's program, as well as the Liberty News Network. We also use Instagram. This is kind of, whenever we have a package that is either too long to run on our daily news show, or we just think maybe it's a little less timely than what we want, we'll push it out on Instagram, and that will allow the student body to still be able to interact with it. We've also used Instagram to cover local elections, and just last December, we did a kind of March Madness Christmas movie bracket where we kind of interacted with all of our student body to see kind of what Christmas movie they liked the best. And just today, actually, we restarted The Rundown, which is our Snapchat show. It's a very kind of shortcut version of our new show. So we always put the most important parts of our daily newscast in there. And it's just much more concise, and it's right on Snapchat. I mean, the entire student population uses Snapchat, so it's very accessible for them. And kind of, if we need something very important to get out, it's a great way to do that.
Moving on to the telethon, this is by far our biggest fundraising event that we do. It is usually a 7 to 8 hour live stream event. This year it'll be on April 10th from 10 to 5. But yeah, like I said, it's our biggest fundraising event. We're able to reach out to different businesses who want to sell ads to us to play during the actual show. So those will run as long as some of the other like better news packages that we ran throughout the year during that show. Also, during the show, we'll be able to interact with different staff members district-wide. We're able to do interviews with multiple people within our school and the district. I know Mr. Rafe has been a big part of that, usually in the first hour of our show every year. And then, other like staff members in our school, Dr. Ishba Cox, our band director, has been another one. Mr. Smith, when he was still our president, was another good one. And it's just a great thing for really anybody, local or even further out, to tune into. It's just a bunch of fun the whole day that we run it. And selling ads to those businesses, that's one way to make money. They're able to purchase a certain amount of time that they want, whether it's 30 seconds or 60 seconds, and then run that same ad however many times they want during the telethon. So it's a great way for fundraising with that. On average, we usually make about $7,000 to $10,000 per year off of the telethon. Higher end is $10,000, lower end is usually $7,000. So it's usually a good amount, and we use that money to like buy new equipment that we would need the next year, or if we wanted something new altogether, or stuff we need to replace, stuff like that. And then we would take just some of that leftover money, keep it in a pocket for future projects or whatever we needed to use it for in the future with that. It's definitely a fun show. It's very creative for everybody that's a part of it, and it's a great time. So.
Going off of that money aspect, this is what we want to do with the future of our program. Like we said, we get all that money, and we do put some of that away while we need essential parts of our program to keep it running. We like to pocket some. Like this year, we bought a drone, which is super fun to use. It was super fun for all the staff to get to try that out and fly it over the school and film things. Some of our dream purchases coming up, we are looking to do a second press box specifically for our sports casting since it's getting larger. We had an issue with the tent this year and the bleachers, and we no longer have a tent for our football season. So that's something we hope to get. We also are looking to soundproof our studio, which I feel like is an essential part, which was probably where a lot of our money is gonna go for the next year. We do kind of get an echo back and forth, and soundproofing would be a great way to ensure that our newscast is as great as it can be. We would love to add flooring for our radio room, because as we opened a radio room, it is a closet. So we would love to add flooring so it feels more like a classroom or a more comfortable space. We've got a couple of beanbags in there, but I think flooring would make it a lot more cozy. People would be more open. Our biggest dream probably won't be achieved for a little bit, but we would love a production van for away games. So say we go to Berlin for a big basketball game, take the van, whole crew. It's a great way to get everyone involved. Is that it? Okay. Thank you. We would like to open it to questions if you have any.
All right, so the other comment I'll make, so I've also watched the Juice on YouTube.
Yeah.
So all the Juice programming available on YouTube, and it's great to watch. So my daughter was an anchor for 2 years, and then I've had a couple girls interviewed there as well, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So one question, a big part of this is deciding what to air, right? And that, sort of agenda setting power that you have in media. So can you talk a little bit about how you do that? Are you working with the advisor, or is it up to you, and how you're making some of those decisions about what's most important?
Can we take that? I got it. Okay. We usually like to do a big brainstorm, like once a month or every couple of weeks, because, third quarter, not much is going on in the school, but students really get to cover whatever they want, and as long as it's school appropriate, we will find a spot for it to run in our show, or like we said, on Instagram. So, it's really fun. Like, sometimes people will, scroll through Twitter, and they'll find some and be like, oh, I want to make a news package on this, and it's really cool to see them, get to research it, and it's really fun to watch people, learn the editing skills and cut it up.
Often we do have sometimes packages take a little longer than we expect to produce, and they become less timely, which means it's not really as relevant. So sometimes that's when we kind of push it to a different platform, so we can have the more timely stuff running on the daily news.
Yeah, and like Wyatt had said before, we try to push some of those packages that are kind of more timely, needed to run sooner than others. We would post those on Instagram, but then also going through with us being just a school production outlet, we try to stay neutral, obviously, in any political talks or anything like that with in terms of packages.
Well, thank you so much for this. This is amazing work, and really just the skills that you're learning from this are so transferable and will help so much in your career. So I'm really appreciative of all of the work that you put in. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Do you have something, Kevin?
I'll jump in just to say, I can't help but, I'm thinking back to QTV when I was in high school a million years ago in a land far, far away, and I thought we were so cutting edge. I'm pretty sure we had a camcorder and like a VHS tape, and I don't even know how we broadcasted to the school, and it was not that exciting looking back. So I'm so impressed with everything that you're doing, so many outlets, so much content covered, but your passion for what you're doing is really, I think, the part that's really moved me the most here in this presentation. Your future of the program, you're doing so many amazing things as it is, but you're dreaming big, and I really like that, so keep it up.
Thank you.
I have a question. So what are your plans for, well, what grades are you guys in?
We're all seniors.
So what are your plans going forward?
I'm looking to go into general journalism, probably focusing more on broadcast. I'm looking at Mississippi.
Well, I'm looking to study film and media production and kind of go into more of the narrative side of things. And I'm not sure where I'm going yet, but.
Yeah, so I'm actually the odd one out. I will be going to college to study business management with a marketing specialty. Definitely though with this is just kind of having a backbone to fall on in case it, becomes something I do end up want to do, later down the road. But yeah, so far no super big future plans with it.
Nicola often says with this program that when we graduate high school, we're going to graduate with more experience, hands-on experience on a newscast than he did with his bachelor's degree. And I think that's really just at the core of the program. That's what matters most, and the biggest benefit from our program.
Yeah, and building off with him, even if you're not planning on doing this after high school, it's just something, especially with our position, that builds a lot of leadership and problem-solving skills and just critical thinking all around. So it definitely helps out in all aspects.
I did. It's been a long time since Mr. Nicola started this, and I remember I was out of town at a conference, and Liberty and Orange were playing football, and Dr. Fetty and I don't know if Jack, were you with me? We met with Boxcast and first started talking about the infancy of being able to do this, and we got very, excited about those opportunities. I think it was in Florida actually, and scrolling my email and saw the link, and I called it up, and I was so blown away with how. I said, this is better than ESPN. and I started thinking to myself, I started getting this vision of one day, one of our kids on SportsCenter or on Sideline the business side. You can always work in the business side of media. There's certainly plenty of business side of media. So, this, again, in typical Olentangy fashion, I didn't even know we had advanced broadcast journalism, and just found that out tonight, so thank you. But what typically happens is we start some level of curriculum, some class. So again, there was an interest. So Mr. Nicola, you guys started this class at Orange, so we start with broadcast journalism. And typically, because it's Olentangy, what we have isn't good enough, and we have to offer more. So now we have advanced broadcast journalism, which sounds like an incredible experience for you as leaders. Thanks for coming tonight and all that you do, because you're making Orange a much better place in that experience. And thanks for staying neutral. Parents that are here, I can't imagine how proud you must be hearing them up there, and it's awesome. But best of luck for the future. And hate to tell you this, but the Berlin News already interviewed me about my retirement.
Expect an email.
They only cover interesting topics.
Thank you. That's a good one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job. All right, the superintendent's report.
All right, thanks again, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Get right into it. A lot of great stuff going on all throughout the district. And I highlight Shale Meadows Elementary School. They hosted their very first multicultural night. So it was a really cool thing that they showcased a wide range of cultural activities and countries representing the entire Monarch community. We had a great turnout there, and again, these are things that are happening all throughout the district. Glen Oak, Oak Creek, Cheshire have already had them, and I know there's many more planned here coming up in the district. We did have our one community conference last Saturday. I had a scheduling conflict and was not able to attend, but thank you to Mr. Lester and Dr. Wise and Dr. Daberco for attending. I want to compliment Heather Cole and the efforts of the Equity and Inclusion team. Heather kind of led that up. Berlin's High School's custodial staff was outstanding, and our student speakers, from my understanding, did an incredible job, which is always the highlight of the conference. So, that's just, again, one of those activities we're very, very proud to put on here in Olentangy. We've been talking a lot about Bridge Ed, and this is one of the first activities that we had come to the district. OSU Wexner Medical Center did a hands-on station rotation for 60 Shanahan students. They brought an ultrasound and did live scanning, MRI, and explained how magnetism works in an MRI. They did a slideshow on nuclear medicine and what's involved in that, x-rays, interventional radiology, and a physician's table. So radiologists were there talking to our students about the career paths that, there in radiology. We also then just had 8 teachers do an externship. I just found out today, so I'll probably have that in a future report, but they did an externship with Wexner Medical Center on opportunities to be involved in the medical field. Bless you, whoever that was. Two of our schools, Olentangy High School and Liberty High School, held their Hall of Fame induction ceremonies. So you see a list of great student athletes, and highlighting Mr. Yeomans, who was a longtime golf and softball coach at Olentangy High School, great coach there. The boys state championship soccer team, and it's just for me and obviously for Mr. Wright, having been in both of those buildings, there are a lot of kids that certain young men and women that we know and cheered on, and my kids actually played with some of those, and so it's just kind of special to see them get inducted. So congratulations to them and their families. This is National School Counseling Week, so we are celebrating the 48 school counselors we have that provide invaluable services to support our student well-being. Obviously that continues to be an important part of our entire program. I want to give a shout out to Orange High School and their Black History Month Assembly. They do a great job every year with the Black History Month Assembly. They put a lot of time and effort into producing that, so that was just another great production. 10 TV actually did a story, and they spoke with a few of our teachers, Alicia Simpson at Cheshire and Shannon Griffin at Heritage, to share about how teachers in the district integrate lessons about Black history into the curriculum this month specifically. It is also coming up here next February 15th is School Resource Officer Appreciation Day. So we appreciate the work of our 7 school resource officers: Deputy Roy, Deputy Peterson, Deputy Gaines, Deputy Mox, Deputy Newman, Deputy Simila, and Deputy Siegel. As you know, we have a full-time school resource officer dedicated to each high school, and then the 3 others support the middle schools and elementary schools. We have put in a request for staffing with the sheriff. That's a shared cost that we share with the Delaware County Sheriff's Office for 3 additional school resource officers. So we would assign each middle school to have their own school resource officers that would then support 3 or so elementary schools. So that should be coming forward here soon. The sheriff goes through the budget process just like all of us. So some administrative action items. We have 2 administrative employment items on the agenda. Jonathan, I should have got their last name so I wouldn't butcher them. Collier. Jonathan Collier is here with us, and Alex Zavadny. All right, very good. They are being recommended to be the new assistant principals at Berlin Middle School. Jonathan's coming to us from Worthington Schools, and Alex is coming from Columbus Public. So welcome. Jonathan's wife Tyler's with us, so welcome to the Olentangy family. We have one retirement on the agenda, Paula Murphy from Liberty Tree Elementary School and Intervention Aide. So congratulations to Paula, and we wish her the best. And a couple of business items there, Great Minds for Geodes classroom kits. This is very important because this is a big topic now. These classroom kits are based on the science of reading, and Geodes are decodable books designed for emerging readers. So there's an online access component of this purchase to provide students with rich content and color-printed books in digital format. So the curriculum team's very excited about those coming forward. And obviously, you see the resolution for the OFCC Expedited Local Partnership that Mr. Gordon's going to speak about, and the approval of the turf replacement at the 3 high schools. Some important dates. We have our local history plunge. Again, I kind of highlighted that in the last meeting. It's coming up February 11th, so I give compliments to the curriculum team for putting that together. We do have a professional development day and President's Day coming up next week, so a long weekend here for the kids coming up. Highlighting our community engagement session on safety, security, and preparedness, February 28th. Sorry, I skipped over the Business Advisory Council meeting coming up. And March 7th, we have a new format. Typically, I do a State of the Schools presentation here. We're going to try something different and new. Mrs. Davis and the communications team are very excited about it. It's going to be great. Coming up, and then our next Board of Education meeting, February 23rd. So with that, what questions do you have?
Anything, Mr. Rafe? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins, the treasurer's report.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Excuse me. Just a few items tonight that you'll find. First of all, the Finance and Audit Committee is going to be right here in this room, slightly different configuration, Monday night at 6 o'clock p.m. A couple of the items will be brought before the board over the next couple of weeks. The annual comprehensive financial report will be next week. The alternative tax budget, a couple of the proposed policies, Mr. O'Brien, that you had mentioned last week. I'm going to talk with the Finance and Audit Committee first. Tonight, you actually will be seeing the 2022 property valuation and tax rates, the rates and amounts resolution that the county auditor says, hey, Olentangy schools, here's what the millage is going to be, and here's what your estimated resources will be. Very pleased to announce through the hard work of Jeff Gordon and also through Joe Swazi that we were awarded the Round 4 OFCC school safety grants. That's about almost $1.5 million. It's broken down between $50,000 and $75,000 depending on which school, but certainly all schools are getting anywhere between $50,000 to $75,000. Outside of, this was a nugget that Amanda Beeman laid on me, outside of Cleveland Public, we are the highest awardee of any school in the state, so that was really cool. Tonight, if you're following along, introducing board docs. I appreciate the willingness of the board to be flexible. I know we'll continue to get used to it, but it has made a world of difference, at least in my department, for meeting minutes production, the online repository of being able to look things up. Hopefully the community can see that you are able to actually follow along with board meeting records, whereas in the past we would have listed them by the meeting date and then had a link to the agenda and the exhibits. If you now go to, you can see the breadcrumb trail home, Board of Education, board meetings, board meeting records. You will get to where it says read board meeting agendas and minutes. Everything moving forward will be online on board docs. And then here's the wonderful thing. Betsy Bowers, actually Heather Lance told me that we are going to take all of the old stuff and transition it to board docs. The reason that's powerful is once it lives in board docs, everything that's there is searchable. So whereas right now you would have to kind of remember when we might have adopted resolution XYZ back in 2018, by the time it all gets to board docs, you'll just be able to do the search feature. If you know a few keywords, you should be able to find it much more readily.
That's great.
So,
Good.
questions?
Anything? No? All right, thank you very much. So the next item is public participation. Do we have anyone for public participation? Okay. All right, we will go to we have two discussion items tonight. First, and actually Jeff is Mr. Gordon is the star of the show tonight with two discussion items. Turf replacement is first, and then we'll follow on with the OFCC ELP program. So Jeff?
Well, good
Start with
evening,
Turf,
and
please.
I don't want to correct Mr. Jenkins. I do want to give credit where credit is due. From our office, Jenna McDevitt, our new assistant director, actually worked on that grant with Mr. Swazi. Jenna has quite a bit of experience from working for the state and when she was a dentist and working on grants, and was very helpful with that and how to frame that. So I just wanted to put that out there, that Jenna's already showing her value here. Two important subjects tonight. As Mr. O'Brien mentioned earlier, the turf replacement. The original turf was put in 2013, so 10 years later, which is about the lifespan that they projected for us. They gave us an 8-year warranty, and it estimated that we'd have a 10-year life. At the time, they had estimated that our turf replacement would be about $300,000. As we know, all the cost over the last several years has driven that up. The original turf replacement was funded by the boosters, of course, and then now the replacement is the bulk of it is through the turf replacement funds that each athletic department has built up, and that is combined with a percentage of their athletic gates as well as any rentals that we've had in those stadiums. We will move those fees. So if somebody rented a stadium and had custodial costs, the custodial cost went into the general fund to reimburse the district for those costs, but the actual rental fee went into the turf replacement fund based on which field was being used at that time. The two things that we're adding this year is the D areas were not completed in the original installation, and we're going to fix that. We're going to expand that. That's become a bit troublesome with this between the grass and trying to maintain that, because we can't water up against the turf. The grass is brown. Different things they do, and it makes it hard to maintain that space. So we're going to go ahead, and the district is going to do the work on the D areas, whereas the turf replacement is through the athletic department. I've got a bit of a breakdown here. I'll just quickly go through on this and show you the bids. So we actually did an RFP process this time because we didn't want a low bidder, and since this was not a school building, legal counsel did advise us that we were okay to go ahead and do this through an RFP as long as we got the three prices, which is our board policy. So we chose the three companies we wanted to bid on this. So we were trying not to get a low bid turf that didn't last. So we chose to submit the RFP to Moats, who is the installer of turf at Liberty High School original stadium, and then they also did the Liberty baseball field. And the Berlin turf. They did the Berlin turf through the Berlin project. Maumee Bay had put turf in originally at Olentangy High School and Orange High School, and AstroTurf actually had put turf in recently at the softball fields that they did presentations here to the board at Liberty and Orange High School. So we had three good companies that had great reputations. They had great references from others as well as our experiences with them. So we knew we were getting quality turf, and these weren't the highest end turf companies out there, but they were a quality turf, just as we always try to get quality, but not pay that top dollar on there. So the turf came in from Maumee Bay was the low bidder at $1.7 million. We did have a couple alternates on there. And those alternates are costs that would be paid either through the turf replacement fund or the athletic department. So where the athletic departments would have a shortage between the turf replacement fund and the cost of their specific turf, they will fund that through their athletic department or through booster donations, however they choose to do that. But the athletic department is fully responsible for that part of the turf replacement. And the two alternates was end zone coloring and lettering, and you see the breakdown of the costs there, as well as alternating 5-yard shading on the fields, which is something we haven't had but was not an additional cost. So it adds another contrast to the field that sharpens the look. The breakdown here, the cost per field summary you see here was, again, I highlighted Maumee Bay was the low, so the cost per field with the D areas was $579,000, but if you look to the far right on the top, $379,000 was actual cost to replace turf. So 10 years ago, when they gave us that cost of $300,000, they were in that $300,000 range, just at the higher end of it. And again, I put a lot of that to what's happened the last couple of years and with those costs. And then down at the bottom is just a breakdown for you to quickly review of the where the turf replacement funds are. The cost of the field, the original cost without the D areas, again, the district is funding the D areas, but the athletic departments are funding the field replacements. And the cost of the D areas plus the end zone lettering if they all choose to do it, and then the total cost per field. And their turf replacement funds do include last fall's gate receipts, so they've come up to the minute with the bid to cover that. And on the far right is the remaining balance that I mentioned is coming out of the athletic department fund. So they will fund that either through the athletic department or work with their boosters for donations to fund that cost, which is my expectation would be that most of them will do it through booster donations. Any questions on the turf replacement? I know I went fairly quickly there. So,
Only question is, do we expect a similar amount of usage out of them as we did from the last version of the turf?
Yeah.
8 to 10 years.
yeah, and we just continue to add things on there. The one thing we didn't see as much of, which gave us some less use, and I think is just this turf was added across central Ohio when the boosters came with their plan for the rentals, the additional funds. There were less turf fields, and then over the last 10 years, we've gotten more and more. So as we've gotten further and further into the life of the turf, we've had less opportunities for rentals because of so many people now have it, and they're not having to seek it out and travel to get to the turf fields because most of them have it in central Ohio now. So,
But even like for the district sports, the utilization gets much higher, right? Because you don't have rainouts, washouts, particularly when we move the school calendar a little earlier for the spring sports, you get access to the field much quicker.
yes,
On
and
a
the
much more consistent basis.
yeah, yeah. And with the stadium lights, we actually will have less maintenance on our grass fields. Previously, before we had turf and tried to keep people off as much as possible the stadiums because of the wear, we just couldn't with lacrosse in the spring and soccer in football in the fall. It was hard to maintain those grass fields. So that was why turf was so important to do at the time that we did it. What that's allowed us to do is that on the January, February, lacrosse is out there. They can get lacrosse practices in. They turn on the lights, they'll practice and have an early practice in the late. And I think the boys and girls rotate and anybody else that needs to get on that field. So we get on there. So the turf is used more and more, but it also keeps them off the practice fields in the spring when it's still muddy. So it's safer and less maintenance of those fields being torn up as well. So.
Can I ask a question about the school safety, the grant you received?
Yes.
Just for my information, round 4, does that mean they're going on to another round, or are these like time sensitive, like they're doing round 4 now, and then next year or whatever, they do round 5? How does that work?
I'm not sure of what they're
Okay.
going with the next round. I know they originally we didn't originally make the cut, and then the governor put another round in it, and with the previous submissions we were awarded this time around. So
When
I
you
wish I
look-
had more information on that, but
Well, I'm looking at the other awardees. I mean, we did really well. That's a big
Yeah.
deal. I mean, more than I think almost all of Franklin County.
yeah, and I think we were very deliberate in reviewing what Jen and Joe put together and how they did that, instead of just asking for the sky, the pie in the sky and saying we need, $200,000 for every building and just putting in $200,000 in Senate. They were very deliberate about saying, here's what we need. Our numbers didn't match up, so we asked for 50 at one building, 75 at another, based on what had been done and what was there. So we really put some time into it. And I think that when, a lot of times with grants, my understanding, when they review those, they really want to look for that you put the work in, not that you just filled out $100,000, $100,000, $100,000. And I think that's why we saw such a good response in awarding so much of what we submitted, was because it was deliberate, there was thought, and you could tell, okay, this building needs this, so this is why it's this number, and this building needs this much, and that's why that number changed. And I think
And it
that
looked
had a
like
lot to
every
do with
building.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Well done.
So,
But again, so this is round 4. Do we get anything in rounds 1, 2, and 3?
I don't believe districts that already have been awarded would get some until it's come back around.
It's a little bit of, probably the most, the fact that we didn't get anything to round 4 is a little bit more consistent with what we've seen in school funding.
Yeah.
Like
But-
Esther stuff almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of what's happened as well, my understanding from our discussions is, some districts haven't applied because they haven't gotten it and did not think that they would get some. So I'm not sure that there was as many applicants either this time around. So then when it came to the governor awarding that next round, it's, well, these are the ones that did apply. And so I think next time around, because some schools like in Olentangy and Upper Arlington, some others got money, I think some of the others that maybe didn't apply this time will apply next round.
It's great news either way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's money we're not spending this on, so, yeah, great.
Yeah, no, it's really good news, and we've got a lot of things. We've had a couple meetings already talking about, okay, what do we want to spend this on? How do we want to move forward with it? Because again, we want to be very deliberate about, what we're doing, and the proposals were, you had options of things. We listed several things that we want to do in the buildings, and now it's prioritizing those and moving forward. So. Okay, the next one, the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission, going forward, the OFCC. For those of you that don't know, the OFCC is a Ohio program that manages the state-funded portion of schools. The funds, as part of a district must pass a bond along with the state share to be included in it, and it's based on equity rankings. And the equity rankings are really complicated. Anybody that wants to sit and kind of go through those, I'm happy to do that later. But our ranking puts us at 481 out of 609 districts. So you get an idea that we haven't historically in the past considered ourselves to be close to receiving funding based on that. And our ranking actually has moved up a little bit over the last couple of years, and I'm not sure how that's happened, that our ranking's actually gotten better based on how they do that. But what we do know is with the new program, or a program they've had for about 10 years, it's the ELPP, and that's the Expedited Local Partnership. And I'll jump back and forth between slides, but the ELPP program was started to let districts like ours to get credit for work that we do today. So if going forward, if we pass this resolution and go through this process, we may have the opportunity to get funds back for building that we do prior to us being eligible. And eligibility is based on, it's hard to estimate when we'd come. We think it could be possibly as early as within the next 10 years, but it's based on districts that accept it. So some districts that are higher ranking than us may come eligible and choose not to participate or not be able to pass a bond issue. And then they'll move down to district. So there's districts ahead of us that maybe haven't received funds, but they've had the opportunity. So depending on who takes it and who doesn't, and that's why we're just not sure where we'll be. But the advantage, again, to this program is it lets districts that aren't necessarily eligible do this. And again, it's been there for about 10 years. And we looked at this as a district back in about, I think it was 2010 or 2011, and working through that and looking at how the requirements of the program, you see here at the bottom, very specific guidelines to follow: type of construction materials permitted, type of space that's funded by the program. For example, construction materials, at that time, drywall and metal studs with veneer block wasn't considered, but yet the block walls, like we do on our elementaries, was. The type of space funded by the program, they will fund classroom space, but if you're putting an auditorium in like we do, that's a district expense. That would be a local funded initiative. And then the buildings must also be LEED, which adds a lot of cost to it. LEED is being part of the energy efficiency program, and there's a lot of costs and things that come when you try to be LEED certified that you have to follow, which added cost to the building. So when we looked at this back in 2010 or 11, adding some of those things that we don't do necessarily that they would have required would have added costs. So based on our percentage, you see here, it's the split is estimated to be 80-20, 80% district cost, 20% OFCC cost. The additional cost we would have on our buildings, because we are so efficient at building and construction, actually exceeded the additional cost we would have to exceed what we would have gotten back from the state. So that has been kind of the driver and why we haven't participated, besides our number not being up. But when the ELP program came out, giving you the opportunity to do things ahead of time with credit for the future when you do become eligible, we didn't participate, and that's why. Why now is the question. I'm sorry. The standards have changed where now they will let you do some things like our metal stud and drywall with the veneer exterior, like we do at our high schools, like we just did at Berlin Middle School. They are now allowing that in their construction. So where we couldn't do that before, and that's one of our big cost savings measures, doesn't hinder our life of our buildings, but it saves us quite a bit of money on our construction. So That was, now that they let you do that and they will let you get credit for that, there's some things we want to go back, look at the program again and say, okay, what will it cost us now to participate in this program? If they'll accept that, that's one cost-saving measure we have in place that they'll accept. What other measures, what other construction methods and what other materials are we using will they accept today? So that's something we want to investigate, because being, always worried about cost and trying to be efficient with our construction, we want to make sure we look. We may come to the program at the end and say, it's still the case, the requirements, the things that they are going to require us to add to our buildings that we don't think we need, and we've had success building and have done a nice job of educating our students in the buildings we have. We may find that adding those costs for the construction may exceed what we would get back from the state. So we're going to go through that process. The first step is to this resolution that's on the board tonight. It's important. They won't let us do it without it. It mentions that it has to be 12 months before you go on the ballot that you pass the resolution. Not that you have to go on the ballot in 12 months. You just can't go on the ballot prior to 12 months. And that's what the resolution states, is we would not go on the ballot prior to March of 2024. Just to be clear, I'm not tonight standing up here saying that that's something that we're going to do. Yes, sir.
Mr. Bryan, can I just ask one question? If they give us $1, does that constrain the rest of the project, or are they only allowed to tell us what to do with the 20% they're giving us?
No, you have to, they're very stringent design. They have a design manual you have to follow. And even with allowing some of the materials we have, it's not that they've changed the design manual, it's that they will exempt you on some things. So they're very specific. So to get $1, we have to follow the manual and ask for exceptions on things that we don't want to, that we don't want to change in the manual, and see if they'll let us go through the program. So you're in or you're out really with that. And then you ask, in our case, now that they've made some of these exceptions, they're allowing some of these other things. It's not, again, they didn't change the design manual. They make you go through a process to ask for an exemption. So
Okay.
it's like zoning asking for a variance to make that change.
And we've never used it, so we don't even know how that variance process works, or...
Well, we've never used it, and that process is fairly new for them to allow these things.
Right.
So when the gentleman that we talked to actually is the same person that walked us through the process 10 years ago. So he was excited to hear from us, and he actually had mentioned a couple of things that, like the blocks and the way we do the high school and middle schools, that they've allowed that for others, so we'd have a good chance of getting that through. He did mention that they still require the LEED certification, which really adds quite a bit of cost. It's based on points, and it's another complicated thing that you have to go through to be LEED certified, but it does add some costs for you, especially if you don't get points. We generally up here, you get points in LEED, for example, if you take over a brownfield and you build in it and you turn that space around, you get points towards LEED with that. Well, in order to meet LEED, you have to meet so many credits or have so many points. So we wouldn't get points for something like that, so we'd have to make them up in other areas, which again, that's an easy, area to clean up. I'm sure there'd be some cost cleaning up a brownfield, but that's an area where you quickly get some points towards your LEED certification, whereas for us, that wouldn't be the case for us here in Delaware County, but we would have to find other ways to meet those qualifications, which will drive our cost up to some extent. And that's what we have to evaluate. Is the cost of our buildings going to go up so much so that it exceeds the dollars we'd get back from the state to make it worth it? And I think the advantage for us as a district is we build a lot of buildings. We know our cost per square foot. We have some very talented, experienced people on the facilities committee and our construction team that we can sit down and really look at it and come to a good, sound decision on whether it's a good program for us or not.
So this is just to look at it? It doesn't...
This is just to get us started, and I said I would jump around here a little bit. So the first part is to pass the resolution, and then we have to go through and do an assessment of all of our buildings. Well, an advantage for us through this assessment, we have 8 different age on the buildings, but we have 4 elementaries that are the same. We have 11 other elementaries, really 12, because Shell Meadows is just a classroom longer across the building. So it's really the same building. So when we go through and how many windows do you have, how many doors, how many, they go through and they really look at that and when are you up for replacement. So we've talked to them about, is that, timeline getting through and will you want to come in every building, or can we, the ones that are prototypes, can we do that? So that will allow us to expedite to make that decision, because we don't want to build buildings going forward really until we know this. We don't want to miss out on money. on cost. So we want to get through this process. We want to be prepared so the next time that we do have to take a look at that, we're ready to go and we know we're participating in this program or not. Because that's the one thing that this could add to us is a little bit of time. Getting through the red tape of the OFCC process is not easy and is not a short timeline. So we'd have to keep that moving if we participate.
But to be clear, this would be after elementary 17. So elementary 17
Correct.
is still going
Correct.
forward as
Any
is.
buildings that we have designed and that we have bid out now currently we would not get credit for. We would have to enter the program, do the assessment, and then get approved to participate. Then going forward, any buildings we did under the program following the guidelines that they set for us.
I think it's smart to do the work and look at if it makes sense for us or not. My sense is we probably have more experience in the building business than many, many districts in the state of Ohio. Probably OFCC could probably take as much advice from us as they give us. So I think it's smart to take a look at it and see if it makes sense.
I would agree, if you look strictly at our cost per square foot versus what they're building for, we're quite a bit ahead of them. Are we 20% of if it's $100 million worth of buildings, are we $20 million better? I think that's part of what we have to review.
I agree.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. All right. We are now ready for the treasure action items. Mr. Jenkins, could you please present your treasure action items?
Yes, the first item up for bid is the approval of the meeting minutes from January the 12th.
So moved.
We can just do the two together. Just do A and B together.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I apologize. Then the second one is the rates and amounts that were spoken of earlier, where the auditor basically tells us what our millage rates will be and the money it'll raise. So I'll go ahead and take Dr. Wise's move.
So are you good with A and B together?
I'm good with A and B together.
We have a
I'll
second?
second.
Okay.
Dr. Wallace, second.
Any discussion on treasure action items A and B? All right, seeing none, please call the roll.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Dr. Wise?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Rafe, would you present the superintendent action items, please?
Yep. Yes, sir. I'd like to present superintendent action items A through H for approval.
You could have a motion, please.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on superintendent action items A through H? All right, seeing none, please call the roll.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Dr. Wise?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
All right, I'll now entertain a motion to go into executive session as permitted by the Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1 to
So
consider the employment of public employees as well as the purpose of discussing pending litigation. Your motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? The only thing I'll add is we will only return to adjourn. We will not be taking any action when we return. So with that, I'll please call the roll, Mr. Jenkins.
Dr. Wise?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. I believe we're going to the Liberty. right, it's 9:15 PM. I'll call the meeting back to order. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do you have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion on the adjournment? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Was the motion, Dr. Wise?
Yes.
Okay, and the second was?
Me.
That's Mr. Lester.
Yeah.
Mr. Lester.
Got that one.
If you don't know everybody's voices by now.
Mr. Lester?
Yes.
Dr. Dabrico?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Dr. Wise?
Yes.
Dr. Wallach?
Yes.